On a block in Wayne County, where state officials are looking at some new ideas to make Belle Isle even better. After a 2-year study, officials are considering several changes to improve travel to and around the island. Joining us now in studio to tell us about the proposed plans is the CEO of Belle Isle Conservancy, Megan Elliott. Thanks so much for being here, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Belle Isle, it's been in the headlines for several years now, lots of changes there. What's the backstory of the study?
So this story has been about 2.5 years in the making. The majority of that time has just been around community engagement and public input. It's a public park. It's a beloved space for the entire region. So it's so important to just learn from everyone. First, how do you get on the island? How do you move around there? And then what do you want to see moving forward? So that was really the impetus for the study. And we just wrapped that up recently and released the results, and we're excited to get to work on what those next steps look like.
So speaking of what things look like, what would some highlights be of this makeover?
So some of the things that I've heard from folks already that they're very excited to see are the trail that's going to be running the entire perimeter of the island. Something that I think has been surprising to folks is the Central Avenue, which is basically the spine that's east and west across the island, turning that into a pedestrian promenade. So basically just a space for folks to get out on their bike, walk, enjoy the island in a different way than it has been previously, and kind of goes back to the original development of it as a park. There are also proposals for a water taxi eventually, which will be a little bit more complicated to implement, but I think is a super exciting potential for how we work with residents to get more folks out to the island, and would be really fun to have. So.
It would just be really fun. Yeah. That's right. That'd be great. So when you think about history and you think of how the island was initially laid out, what did it look like? You said you're kind of coming back to how it was originally envisioned.
So there's an active zone where there's actually a ton of assets and historic buildings. They're all very close to one another, but just naturally over time and with the use of cars, we've developed into this kind of process of everyone drives over the MacArthur Bridge, they drive to wherever they're intending to go on the island, park right in front of that asset or that spot, and then when they're ready to leave, they get back in their car and they go. What we'd like to either return back to or kind of change in the future is getting folks onto the island and then getting them out of their cars. And then they might be able to explore something that they've never been to before, or just see something new, engage with new people along the way, and just enjoy the park in a different way. So I think that that's been a really exciting part about how we can implement this plan.
And you said local feedback and input has been really central to your studies and just your planning in general. Yeah. What's community response been like?
Yeah, so there's been a ton of community engagement around this, tons of meetings. People have come out of the woodwork to participate in this, and we're so grateful for that. There's been a lot of surveys, meetings, all different types of engagement and in multiple languages. Moving forward this summer, we're also going to be continuing that engagement. So I want folks to know it's not just, we do these plans every once in a while and that's your chance to give input. There's always an opportunity to share with us what you're thinking, what your experience has been on the island, and what we should be prioritizing moving forward. So that's been just a great part of the process and something that keeps going.
And what about economic impacts? Do you expect there to be an impact with these plans?
Absolutely. I think that there's always an impact in terms of capital projects, in terms of job creation for the implementation of those projects or for operating different assets on the island. But I think there's also the reverse of that in the sense that Belle Isle as a space has a great economic impact on our entire region. So, when people talk about economic development, they often talk about small business access to opportunity, but really public spaces are a core part of why people choose to live here and be part of our region, and Belle Isle is at the epicenter of that. So we just want to make it even stronger.
So true. It's really a wonderful place to go visit, and it's so exciting to see that it will be changing even more.
Absolutely.
And in such a good way in the future. Thanks so much for joining us, Megan.
Thank you for having me.